Hey everybody, how we doing?
Hey,
Yo,
Got some new faces. What's up, Brad? We've only talking 15 times, dude. It's so glad I
yeah,
get
how
to
are
see your
you?
face. I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. I think we're starting the campaign. Well, I'm giving them my zip code, so
Okay,
should be starting today.
awesome, awesome. Love it, dude. Yeah, thank you for signing up with us, bro. We're gonna knock it out for you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I know I love these calls. These calls are great proof of concept. Even we've been open for 7 years, but whenever someone's like, I close a deal, I'm like, really? I mean, of course, everyone's closing deals, but it's always like so invigorating to experience. So I'm excited to see. I'll probably week after next too, talking about all the leads we bombarded you with. Is
I hope so. Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you know what I tell my clients is we start with our first problem, which is I need leads, right? Then you hire me and you have a brand new problem, which is what am I going to do with these leads, right? Because that's actually the money activity. I make leads easy. Before you met me, leads were a fugazi, right? They're elusive. We have to put all this work in and create systems. Then after you meet me, you're like, well, I got the leads, but now the hard part begins, the emotional intelligence, the follow-up, the systems and stuff like that. And that was an accidental and perfect segue to our guest speaker here today. I have Bill Allen. Some of you may know him. He is the CEO and founder of sevenfigureflipping.com. We're in the same mastermind together, and he volunteered to come drop some nuggets on you guys about system creation and all that good stuff. So Bill's a real ninja in real estate. He has his own huge business. He does have an education platform, but he created education because he crushes real estate. So he actually knows what it takes on a granular level to get to where we all want to be, which is really great. All right, Bill, what's up, man? How's it going, bud?
good. Thanks for the invite first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy to be here. The way I'll do it is I'll just kind of give you my background a little bit, present a couple things and ideas. Even just as Nicholas was talking, it was like I have something that I want to talk to you guys about like systems. Everybody hears it, but it's like, what does that even mean? So that was me, years ago. So, and then I'll just open the floor for questions because there's not a lot of people in here. So I just want to spend as much time getting you the thing that you need right now, if I can help support you in that. And we spend the hour like really, really wisely. So I see people all the time just come in and talk about themselves. It doesn't really work for me. Like, what's in it for me? And I know each of you are there. You're taking an hour. I want it to be really valuable for you. So a real quick background, I was a military pilot. So I was an engineering background. I went to Georgia Tech, and then I got a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. And I went in the Navy and flew helicopters and airplanes for the last 20 years. So I retired last year from the Navy. I actually built my real estate business while I was active duty. I was flying like 12 hours a day, every single day, and one weekend a month that I was gone from my house and my location in Pensacola. And I started like getting into real estate. I started buying rentals, and I started flipping houses, then I started wholesaling houses. And I just really like love real estate. I started from the TV shows, started watching those, got really addicted, like took a sledgehammer to my spare bedroom or my spare bathroom and just figured out how to do construction. I had no idea how to do it. I like to like do a lot of stuff myself. So I don't know if any of you are like me, but you feel like you have to learn everything before you like hire it or let somebody else do it, and you're very hands-on. That was me very early on. And so I started flipping houses. I did like my first house, I made 43 grand. And then a year later, I did my second house. I made 45,000. I mean, that was half of my military salary. It was amazing. And then I went from flipping one house a year to doing 67. And then the next year I did 135. The year after that, I did 187. And I was doing like 200 houses a year, about 80% wholesale, about 20% flip in those numbers. And built a pretty big company in Pensacola and then Nashville and Chattanooga. And then the education platform is something that came on. I actually wasn't the founder of it. I actually bought it from my mentor. So I joined a coaching program, paid 25,000. It helped me scale my business. And then I eventually became a coach. Then I became the COO of that company. And then I bought it from
Oh,
my
wow.
mentor, Justin. So for the last, I mean, I've been running it longer than he was running it before I bought it from him now. So it's been about 2019 is when I bought the company. I just had to figure out something new, how to sell from stage, how to speak, how to create videos and be in the front of the house, because I'm very much like a back of the house systems guy. You might not know now, but I mean, 5 years ago, if you watched me present to a group, it was just embarrassing. Like it was so bad. And so so I did that, and now I own maybe, I don't know, probably like 6 different businesses. I buy 5 or 6 apartments a year and raise money for that. I have a business in Kentucky where we buy houses, fix them up, and sell them on owner financing. I have the real estate business still that we flip and wholesale houses, but I only own a small percentage of that. I have a partner and he does all the work and runs it. I'm not the CEO of that company anymore. I actually just hired a CEO 2 weeks ago for 7-figure flipping.
Oh, wow.
So now I've kind of removed myself from more of the day-to-day operations in that company. Like, so I have a CEO and a COO now, because we're about to get ready to film a TV show for Warner Brothers for kids. And so the next 2 months, I'm going to be doing that. And I have a farm that does maybe $600,000 or $700,000 of top line revenue a year now. And it feeds, 300 families in my area outside Nashville, Tennessee. 3 kids. I travel a lot. I go on a lot of vacations, and I just love to just, have fun and enjoy my life now and spend the money that I've spent so much time kind of like saving up and growing and building over the last like 10 years that I've kind of lived like other people won't, so I can do the things that other people can't now. So that's kind of some of my background. Did 15 years of active duty, 5 years in the reserves. I retired last year as a commander in the Navy. That was a lot of fun. I still fly my personal airplane for fun, and we make videos in the cockpit so I can write it off on my taxes. So that's kind of my background in life. The one thing that I said in the beginning is that whenever like we're talking about creating a new problem. So like too many leads now you have like maybe a systems problem, like a CRM problem, follow-up problem, or a sales problem, and once you fix one problem, another problem is going to pop up. So I think for all of you, even if you're just getting started or you have a really advanced business, your job really is to figure out how to solve those problems. And that's what I really love to do, is solve problems, whether they're mine or other people's. And that's what we do in real estate. We just, like, if you're just out there listening to people trying to help them, your solution might not even be the thing that they need. But if you're just there to support them and help them and solve their problem, then they're going to do business with you one way or the other, or they're going to recommend somebody else to do business with you. So my big thing is just, I do the right thing. I try to take care of people. I try to think about those folks that I'm talking to, whether it's in my company, whether it's leads that come in for their house, because we know the house isn't the problem. There's some other problem that we're trying to solve. And then when we solve that problem, it's going to create a new problem. And so if we can figure out where we fit in all of that, then we can figure out like the system. So when I heard systems in the beginning, it was really attractive to me because I'm an engineer and I love that kind of stuff. So what I found is the best possible system inside of any of my businesses has been the people. And so if you think about that, like your employees, your team, your staff, your contractors, like they're the system, really. Everybody's looking for this like perfect software, this perfect thing. But really the best software I look at is like, it's a time-saving tool for me and everything that I do. And I own a software company. Like, we built one in the last 2 years, and really it's a tool, but the people that are involved in everything are the most important. So systems and process were a big thing. I didn't have a lot of time in the beginning. But I had a little bit of money. So I think in real estate and anything that I do in business, you got to have time or you got to have money. If you have none of either, you're going to be in big trouble. And if you have both, great. That's even better. You can grow way faster. So like I said, I spent the hours of 4:30 a.m. to about 7 a.m. in my office in the morning when I was flying. And then I'd go fly all day. And then I'd come home and I'd spend the hours of like 7:30 to 10 in the office again after I put my son to bed, who was newborn when I got started. And so sometimes it took me that time, but I had to build a system because I couldn't answer the phone when I was flying at, 18,000 feet doing aerobatics with the oxygen mask on. I couldn't do any of that stuff that other people could do because they didn't have the job that I had. They could answer the phone when it rang, and I was spending money on marketing. So I had to hire somebody to do that. So I'm always trying to think about like a couple things. If you think about your skills and what you're best in the world at and what you're not so good at, really everybody's system is going to be a little bit different. But if you can think about like what you're not so good at and find something. Oh, my video froze. Sorry about that. Let me turn it off and turn it back on. See if that works. Okay, we're back.
Good job.
Every time I do that weird thumbs up on this camera.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I got to figure. So that system's broken. It's happened like
right. Yeah, there's like hand gestures turned on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So my advice to you is to figure out like what your current system is. because everything that you're doing, the results that you're getting right now are the results of whatever system you have in place. So, and if you're not getting the results that you want, it just means that your system isn't working. And so my original system, as an example, was I would get a phone call and I'd write somebody's name down on like a sticky note and all their information with a pen and paper. And then I would just kind of like stack up those sticky notes on my desk. And then I'd have to follow up with those leads. That was my original system, right? And it worked when I was getting 1 or 2 a week, but it didn't work when I was getting 10 or 20 a week. And then I, started an Excel spreadsheet. And then I went from there. And then I bought
No, I just got on this call. It's like a pop-in class. I'll call you later.
So I guess if you can realize the fact that you have a system right now and the results that you're getting are based on that system, then you can figure out how to make some small tweaks to adjust it to make it a little bit better. So, I mean, everything from how you make a peanut butter jelly sandwich is just a system. I'm sure that, I don't know, Brad, Christopher, Kathy, and I, we would all make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich different. And your system gets you the results that you want, and my system gets me what I want. If I don't like the results, I just got to kind of change some of the strategy of what I do. So I think with that, it's probably best if I just say, okay, there's my background, there's kind of what I do, kind of some of the stuff that I'm really good at. Where are some of you stuck? And how can I help you get unstuck when it comes to systems, process, or any way that I can help you?
I'll go first.
Yeah, Kathy.
Hey, Bill, nice to meet you. I'm Kathy Nation, and I'm located just northeast of Atlanta, Georgia.
Great.
We have great success with Nicholas and Nick, and that's why I attend these every Tuesday. But our bottleneck now is evaluating the leads quickly so we don't spend time on the ones that are, needing or wanting retail or, have issues with that. We're trying to get to the low-hanging fruit portion of the leads rather than it's just myself and one director of operations, my full-time partner. And she works nights because she's in the Philippines and I work Eastern time. And so just quickly evaluating the lead once I've spoke to him after Nick sends them to us, his team sends them to us. So we spend time on the right lead, qualifying.
So what are you doing with them? Like, what's the exit strategy for you?
Flipping, just wholesale for cash flow at this point in our business. Quick.
You're wholesaling them or you're fixing them up and selling them retail?
All vacant land. Sorry, I'm vacant land only, no homes.
Okay, vacant land, and you're buying it and then selling it on owner finance, or you just wholesaling?
Usually just A to B close same day, buying it when I find the buyer.
Okay, so you're just wholesaling land.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then how many deals have you done?
29 last year, about 16 the last couple, 2 or 3 years, just me.
Okay, so the first thing that I would do, and so you're trying to, you get the leads in and you're just trying to like get out the riffraff a little bit and move to people that are more motivated a little faster, yeah? Okay, so I would look at like what my current process is and write it down and like where all the time is spent. And so let's say I was like evaluating your business to try to figure out how I could help it. The first thing that I would do is I would go back to all those 29 deals that I did last year and then whatever I did this year. And I try to see if there's any like similarities. I'd try to see if there's a pattern. And so let's use an example. Like let's say, and just kind of what pops into my head automatically is like what areas are our best deals? Like if there's a certain zip code or certain area, a certain map draw that I can have, like things that we really like that we do well in. And then maybe there's probably like with the vacant land, there's tax assessed value of the land that you can look up really quickly. And so I would look at that and see if there's any patterns of like what we bought it for, what we sold it for, and what I can find quick on a deal. So if I was going to outsource this to somebody else potentially, like a VA, like you mentioned, and they don't need a lot of educational skill, I would see, could I come up with a number, like a back of the envelope number in the beginning to see if there's a process I could put in place that would get people to raise their hand or put their hand down a little earlier on. So maybe there was some of that in since you have a database full of like an idea of what you bought, then I would look at that to see if there's any kind of like formula I can create. I know in flipping, it's very easy. Like if I have somebody who's flipped like, 20, 30 houses in an area, We can come up, that 70% rule thing that people talk about all the time for like the last 15 years. Well, you can actually, like in New York, I had some guys that were doing like a little higher end stuff, and we got 82% minus repairs. And so pretty much every single deal the guy had ever done was about 82% minus repairs. So I was like, dude, you just dial that in, and now you have a rough, because he's got, all these expenses and stuff. And so if I can figure out a formula like that, that would just get me close, then that could be something. The other piece for me would be, a lot of times I would also look at, I don't like to throw out a lot of leads that we don't think are good. So in the beginning, I filtered my leads too much, and I would only go on like what seemed like really motivated leads on the phone. But when I got there, or I talked to them on the phone, we were like, we were only going on really hot lead appointments, and I wasn't getting enough deals. And then when I hired a salesperson and they went on every appointment, the people that talk really big on the phone, but you get out there and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, there's a hole in my
Ready.
roof, and there's a tree growing through the floor, and
Right.
it's not as nice as you said it. I said it was on the phone. We locked up way more deals because of that. So I'm always careful, like filtering too much. I'd rather have a conversation and then try to figure out like how can I have a conversation quickly, get to what I need to get, and pull out the really like the motivators, and then put other people on some sort of drip campaign or follow-up sequence. Now,
Okay, that helps, because Julie, the admin, I'm speaking of her partner, she knows how to pull the quick tax assess, the areas, the 1 to 5 acre, the quick info, so I can spend the time on the phone with them.
yep.
My thing lately has just been, once I get them, get the offer, get to start process, then I can't get them back on the phone, or it's taken another, month or so to get back in touch with them, so we can send the offer and then follow up to get, their response to the offer. They didn't answer the DocuSign. So
that's a different problem, right? This is more of a sales problem and getting them to make a commitment on that
Convert.
call. So,
Yeah.
And then you send a DocuSign, and you're kind of like, play a game of ping pong, I call it. Like we hit the ball over the net, and then it never comes back to us.
Right.
But we just kind of like leave it there and wait. So then it's more like strategy and tactics of, how do I get somebody to respond? There's a few ways that I do that specifically. I love talk tracks like, well, I guess you've given up on selling this land, and things like that, just to get them to say yes, no, like say something to me. Just like, I might be like, I would just constantly just try to follow up with them. And I'll be honest, like we talked about follow-up sequences, like automations. Automations are okay, but everybody kind of knows when they're getting automated messages, like something that's real, that you would only know from your conversation with them. So like anytime I talk to somebody, I'm not very good with, my memory is really bad. I'm not like a people person at all. I'm a total introvert. And so when I talk to them and they tell me about their kids and their kids' names and their age, and maybe one of the kids was struggling with something, I always put it in the notes of my phone. Like I'll just write it in there as we're talking on the phone for the first time. So I have all this kind of information. You can do the same thing in a CRM. So then I can just pull it out and be like, how's so-and-so doing? Like, it's not even about the house anymore. It's like, hey, what's going on with this person? And only you would know that. So they feel like you care, because you actually do. I mean, it's not just totally manipulative, but if they feel like you care about them, a lot of times they're going to do business with you even over somebody else. So I think that's a different problem, which is like, a lot of times we just try to hit a button and automate it and then just keep going, and they'll come back to us eventually. But like, if it's a good deal, like that's, as a business owner, where we can spend our time. Like for you, Kathy, it's probably like dialing the numbers to be right, and eventually you can train somebody to do that, but you might still be that final stamp. And then also making sure the deal gets closed, because, and then, building bigger relationships, probably talking to the buyers, building that, like figure out where your biggest money maker is and where you can spend the most time. So I always look at like my dollar per hour. So I'll only do things that really either like fill me up internally, like my joy meter, or what's going to make me the most money. So like, I don't like doing stuff that's not, $10,000 an hour type tasks.
Sure. That helps me a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, Bill, you dropped some really good nuggets there. And I love having you in here, because I'm like normally the systems driver, And when immediately you were like, well, we got to list out the process. I like said that last week, and sometimes we don't know what that is, and creating the list helps. We have a client that he puts his feelers out at half of tax assessed value. Exactly what you said. Like if they're willing to have that conversation, we're going to make something work. Tax assessed value is normally lower than actual value. So if they didn't hang up on me when I mentioned half, that means we might be onto something. And that's exactly to your point, a quick, easy qualification that just allows you to know, okay, I've greenlit investing another 20 minutes on this, or, whatever the next breadcrumb is. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, if you've done a lot of deals, the best thing that I've ever done is like disqualify areas and qualify areas to move them up. One thing you could do, Kathy, is create a system that has some lead scoring, where you're actually like internally as a team scoring your leads. So you say like, if it's in this area, this area, or this area, it gets a 5. If it's in this area, it gets a 4. If it's in this area, it gets a 3. I don't want to get too nerdy, but you could be like, if they said this, or they filled out the form, or they didn't fill out the form, then the lead scoring goes up. So then you can like qualify leads. We do that in 7-figure flipping. So when you're running in like a coaching program and you're running ads online, like we specifically like create like 5-6 questions that people do on an application. And then depending on like how much verbiage they put in, like how long did they take to fill out this application? Is it one-word answers? Do they make money? Do they have cash? Are they broke and they have no time and they think that we're going to help them build their real estate business? And so we have a lead scoring. So the lead scoring, if the lead scoring is high, then I want my team, my sales team, and me and my COO, my CEO to all spend time on that lead because it's a really good lead. They're looking for something now. And then if it's really low, then we'll still spend time on them. But if they're not responding to us after they filled out an application, then it might be something we put on more of a drip campaign as opposed to like spending human hours on it. They were just I don't know, maybe they were trying to get the free book or something, or they clicked on it by accident, put a couple words in there, and they don't really care. So same thing here. I happen to know enough about the land business. I have some friends that do it. So a lot of them just send letters to like one area that they want, just like you said, Nick, at like half of assessed value with a contract that is like signed. And then those are the leads that come back. So the people that call are like, I'm willing to talk about that. It might not even be their final offer. It's just to get leads. So there probably is a number in there based on analyzing your past data. I'm a big data nerd, like numbers person. You can take all the emotion out of it if you look at a business with just the numbers. Like and numbers don't lie, people do. So
well, yeah, and that's the thing about processes that I talk to my team about all the time. And when I was a restaurant manager, processes are emotionless, right? Whenever there's no process, we're just doing whatever we think is right at that current point in time. And we could be having a bad day. I could tell you what, guys, ask me a question when I'm having a bad day and watch what happens. That process sucks. So I shouldn't be creating processes on the fly just for that reason. And it's like, I remember even with employees, like when you want to hold your employee accountable, there's a big difference between, I don't like that you did that today, and hey, I don't think that was the policy you were trained on. Could you walk me through what you think you're supposed to be doing? So like one is like, oh, Nick's mad at me today. The other one is, man, I made a mistake because I knew the standard or I knew the policy. So the other thing, to his point, what the processes do is they take out the guesswork, right? They allow us to know that we're taking the best action possible. So one last example is my cold callers. What the job they do for you guys is tough. They get cussed at, they get yelled at, they get discouraged, and it's hard. They're Americans, they're not Filipinos, right? Oh, they're not used to it. They don't even know the English. Like these Americans, they get their feelings hurt. They know exactly what was just said to them, and it does affect them. And one thing I tell my team is like, did you follow the script? Yeah, I did. Did you say what you were supposed to? Yeah, I did. Then you crushed it. Because sometimes they can start to feel like they're bad at their job. And so I refer back to the process. Hey, if you followed the script and you sounded upbeat and you did what you were supposed to do, don't you put that on yourself. And that's the beauty of what a process does, is it not only stops us from being emotional, but maybe it stops us from feeling emotional too after the fact, because we know that we put our best foot forward as well.
I remember when I just got started in all this, I kept hearing this systems and process thing, and it was just so overwhelming. I'm a process person, I'm a data-driven person, and it was really overwhelming. It legitimately can be as simple as just a piece of paper, and you write down the 5 steps that you did today. So like if I was trying to build the process, like I always look at as is, so I'll write down what the as is model is, and then what the should be model is, or what are we going to add to it, or how can we test something. And there's 3 words that I have written. I have these whiteboard walls in my office. If you like turn the camera around and saw what my office really looks like, it's like a Beautiful Mind chicken scratch all over the walls from floor to ceiling in just like whiteboard marker. But it says hypothesize, test, pivot everywhere. So hypothesize, test, pivot. That's my system. I hypothesize, which is an educated guess of what I think is going to happen. And then it's test. So I'm going to test. I'm going to say, this is what I think should happen based on what I do. I'll test it for a period of time, and then I'll adjust and pivot. And then it just goes around in a circle. Hypothesize, test, pivot, hypothesize, test, pivot. So small changes can make huge results over time. But I see a lot of times everybody just kind of tries to throw a dart at the wall. It's like, oh, I'm going to try this and see if it works. They have no outcome, no desired outcome that they're trying to hit. So yeah, there's a couple things for you. If I would write that down, hypothesize, test, pivot. Like that's something that I would say, take that in your business, implement it, and just think about it. You're probably already doing it. And then one last thing before I ask for the next question, I would love it if you guys turn your camera on. Like if you turn your camera on, I promise you, you will get more out of me than if you don't have it on, and I will remember you. So like I get so much feedback from the people with camera, like Lisa's smiling the whole time. Like it's really helpful for me that I can see her. Hopefully it's Lisa and not Lisa or something, but Lisa's like smiling, and Kathy, and like both Lisas. It's just like, and Brad, like getting interaction with you guys, if you can. I realize some of you might be at work and stuff like that. So
here's my interaction. It's Lissa, and
Lissa.
you're cool. Thank you.
Lissa, awesome. Okay, Lissa. I figured it's got 2 S's. I can't be saying it right. That's the problem running at Zooms like this. I always screw it up. All right. Anybody else? What do you guys have?
Hey,
I will.
Francisco. That's a fun name, Francisco.
Yes, sir. I'll let Brad go. I think Brad was a little bit before me, but I'll go after Brad.
Okay, Brad.
Okay, thank you. Less a systems question than a strategy question. I've been doing land for, a few years, and I've bought a lot of rural property over time, and I'm doing some infill lots now. And so the question I have is, it's kind of the old, do you go broad or do you go deep in terms of markets? And because I've been highly focused in a couple of markets for several years, and now I'm kind of looking to well, I've been looking for a year. I haven't I haven't changed anything yet. But do you have any philosophy about that?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple things. If I was giving advice to a brand new investor, it would be to go really deep. It's just not go broad yet, because I mean, really, my strategy is always like, they just have to get their first deal. We get that first deal done, get some money in the bank, and then figure out. I see so many people just like scratch the surface across a really broad area.
Yeah.
And the challenge with that is you filter a lot. Like you really filter it way out. You're going really broad. You're trying to grab like low-hanging fruit. To go broad, it really is going to take a lot of time, a lot of money. So, and there's also like a ton of, like I said, a total data-driven. There's a lot of data that you can see of where things are happening right now, and you just have to get a percentage of it. So like most people are like, oh, there's too many people flipping over there in that zip code or that county. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go over here where nobody's flipping houses or nobody's wholesaling or nobody's building. It's like, no, they're not building or wholesaling or flipping over there for a reason. Like go where the crowd is in the beginning or very early on. It's really important to do that, because you just need a small market share. You just need a small taste. Now, somebody who's a little bit bigger, who maybe has gone really deep or exhausted a lot of their resources, or has, they have kind of an organic brand there. They have a lot of traffic. They're getting that stuff, and they're trying to grow and develop outside that area. Then I would say I would still target another area, and instead of going like a really wide net. The way I see it is like, if you cast a really big net, it's got really big holes. If you cast like a smaller net, it's got smaller holes, you catch a lot more fish. So like Brad, to your, like if you have been doing infill lots and you have kind of exhausted your resources, your connections, the people in your area, and you want to go somewhere else, the first thing I would do is say, okay, like can my, if I'm assuming you're building and not just selling the lots, but if you're just like developing the lots and then selling them off, do I have relationships? Can I sell them? What does the market look like? Do I have, do I have the builders there? Do I have the contractors? If you're subbing it out, like whatever you're doing, where can I go that has some opportunity that's kind of untapped? So I'm very much like a go deep before I go wide kind of person.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, I listen to a number of people who they're in so many markets. I'm not even sure I could keep track of how many markets they're in. And that is a little overwhelming to me. I don't quite understand how to do that, but so yeah, your point is well taken. I am going to expand into one or two other markets and probably just continue to go deep because it's worked so far for me.
Yeah, so one thing there is like the system that you built locally might be really working well, and then you can take that and just duplicate it somewhere else. So here's a perfect example. When I moved to Nashville, I lived in Pensacola, I moved to Nashville, my son got sick, he needed heart surgery. So we moved to Nashville for a short period of time. And I was like, you know what? I need another market. Like I did 55% of the cash transactions in Pensacola. So like my company was doing a ton of transactions there. And then I was looking at two different markets. I was like, I'm going to duplicate my exact business in another city. So I was like, I'm either going to, and I broke them down. I started looking at other areas and I said, I created a lookalike, which is a sub-market. Like Pensacola is a sub-market, 350,000 people. And then I looked at major markets, which was like 1 million and above. So I looked at Jacksonville, I looked at Nashville, I looked at Atlanta, and then I looked at Chattanooga. I think I only looked at Chattanooga as a sub-market. And I was like, you know what? Chattanooga is like exact lookalike market to Pensacola. Like I already know the problems I'm going to have. I know what's going to work. I know what's not going to work. I've already run this play in an almost exact lookalike city. 350,000 people, not a lot of expensive houses. There's low income. There's a little bit of crime. It looked exactly the same. And so very quickly, I was able to spin up a business that produced great results from day one. If I went into Nashville or Jacksonville, I was going to have new problems that I couldn't even anticipate. I'd never been into a major market like that. So that was a disqualifier. I thought there was more opportunity, but it was going to cost more money. So that's one thing that I see as an example for you, Brad, is like, could you find a lookalike area that has very similar kind of, demographics, psychographics, has the people, has the employment, that kind of stuff. And then the second piece that you mentioned was like, a lot of times the problem that we have today is we're like drowning in information, but really like starving for wisdom. Like we're listening to too many people try to tell us what to do in our own business. It's like, if we can cut that out, it's like, hey, that's overwhelming for me. I don't know how you're doing it. And so a lot of times comparison is just the death of where we're going in the direction. And it's so easy to get information now. Like you come on these calls, you listen to me, you listen to Nick, 50 other people, like my clients, they're listening to way too many podcasts and listening to too many books. Like if you're paying me, just listen to me and my people. Like stop listening to 50 different people because they're all giving you different ideas and we never actually get anything done. So I think you guys are in a really great place, and doing this call once a week, it's like, if you're getting advice here, just do it. Like turn off the noise. I stopped reading a bunch of books. I still read very specific books. Like if I have a problem, I find a book that solves it or a podcast that solves it or a group that solves it. But I'm not in 15 different masterminds listening to like 5 different, 10 different, 20 different coaches. It's like, we need results. We need execution. And I just try to get coached by the one person that's already figured out my problem that I have. So
it's good advice.
I think that's another thing that I heard is like, turn off those, 5, 6, 10 people that have great, bigger businesses that you're like, if you don't see the values and culture, like your values and characteristics of you and the results that you're looking for with the life that you want, then just stop listening to those people. Like, okay, cool. You have a great business. Like, I'm really excited for you. But that's not what I want to do. Like find somebody that has done what you want to do and is willing to share and help. And that's my biggest piece of advice to all of you guys. Very early on, I kind of fell in that trap too. I was like, listening to 15 different podcasts, doing 10 different marketing channels. It's just that until I got focused, it just didn't work.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Francisco, you said you were next. Now I have two people raising their hand too. So, but
You're good. I got a special delivery for you. I got a loaded question, but it's a two-part question though.
beautiful.
All right. So I remember I heard you talk about like creating a system for a specific problem. My first part of my question is, how do you stress test a current system that you have in place? For example, like let's just say we figure out a system to deal with leads that come into our pipeline or our ecosystem, whatever the case may be, right? And we figure out a way to go from start to finish for that lead. But now it's completely different when you have 50 sellers going through that one process. And it's like, how do you manage it? Do you determine if okay, basically, how do you stress test it going from 1 to 50? Or while you're scaling, how do you stress test your systems while you're scaling?
Yeah, I mean, I think you gave the answer to your question. It's effectively you build the system. So if you look at it like a machine, if you think of the business or whatever, like you're looking at like a machine that's just like, I think about it as like rocks and dirt going into a machine that's just like crushing it up and spitting out like whatever, some aggregate at like a quarry kind of thing. Like if you just got to put more dirt in the machine, right? So like once we put more dirt in the machine's going to break eventually, right? And as it starts breaking, I always look at my business like duct tape and bubble gum. I had a coach very early on say, he was running a business that was making like $3-4 million. And he was like, man, if you saw the inner workings of this thing, it's held together like with duct tape and bubble gum. And once I saw behind the scenes, he was right, And so we're constantly like fixing a leak, right? We're springing a leak and we're fixing it. The thing that I'll say is a lot of times, to Brad's point of overwhelm, some of the problem is when we don't prioritize and execute some of the problems that are inside the business. So Francisco, what I would say is I would let that keep working until it took so much like it needs to be fixed so bad, it's like sinking the ship. So I'm always focused. I call it closest alligator to the boat. I'm always like working on the closest alligator to the boat. It's about to eat the boat. So I need to kill that alligator and move on to the next one. So the biggest problem that's costing me the most money, that's the business owner's job. It's like, okay, how can I kind of put energy on that? So as an example, let's say we have a marketing problem in our business. We fix the marketing problem, right? Now we're probably going to have a sales problem. We got too many leads, we're going to have a sales problem. Then let's fix the sales problem. Okay, now we fix the marketing problem and we fix the sales problem. So now we're going to have a fulfillment problem. So or a dispositions problem in real estate, right? It's selling the deals. And then let's fix that problem. And then maybe we have a transaction problem, like the communications or some of the systems. And then next thing you know, you're going to be like, okay, I got all this sorted out. Now I have a revenue problem. I want more revenue. I'm sitting here doing nothing. I want to grow the revenue. So now you look back at marketing, like do more marketing. And it's just a cycle of just, we called it, I'm throwing out all these weird sayings, but we called it the pig and the snake in flight school. So I was a flight instructor for like 8 or 9 years for the Navy. And we would bring in all these students and then they'd get stuck somewhere. Like weather would come up and they'd get stuck and not be able to do their familiarization flights because we had to have good weather for that. So we'd have all these students like jammed up in a pipeline. And so if you just look at your business like a conveyor belt, it's like, what area is broken that I need to start fixing? So to that question, Francisco, what I would say is I let the system run until it tells me that it's broken. Like you'll see it. And it usually it's a numbers driven break. Like if you look at it like a funnel, the funnel is going to shrink somewhere. You're going to have like these choke points in the business. And so when you start seeing those choke points, then you just got to like unchoke it by fixing it and just making a tweak and see if that works. And it might be, it's either people or process. That's it. Like it's that simple. Every solution is I got the wrong person or I got the wrong process. And so just remember to look at that, okay? Because a lot of times it's not your process, it's not what you're doing, it's the person that's running the process. So what I always do if I have people, and I don't know if some of you guys have employees or people in the company, I ask that person to write down the process. So I say, hey, take a white sheet of paper and write down the process for this if we're having a problem there. Because then it tells me, does this person even understand what they're supposed to be doing, the process that I had them do? And if not, then if they don't understand what it is, it might not even be their fault. It's just the fact that I didn't properly communicate what I was trying to do, or over time, it's kind of eroded into whatever they think they should be doing. And so, but if they write down the right process and I'm still not getting the results, then I'm like, well, what do you think's going on? And maybe they have a problem at home, or they're actually not working because they're on Zoom and watching YouTube videos about cats or whatever, I don't know, maybe it's the wrong person. And so those are kind of the only two things that are really going to disrupt the system that you have in place.
Wow. And Bill, I feel like this is so great. And this is what I love about systems, right? It's so, it's like he's speaking to lead mining, right? Like we could be talking to people that own libraries, and this stuff would be relative because it's so relevant. And one of the ways I use to identify if a system is breaking is it's three things. For me, it's three things. I call them breadcrumbs, bottlenecks, and boulders. Okay. Everything leads a clue. So what's the breadcrumb? My phone just fell, but what's the breadcrumb here that's being dropped? Like there was a little sign before the big sign. Now, when we're young, we only see big signs, right? Like we're learning everything the hard way. It was just like when we're kids, you touch the stove, you got to burn your hand. Now you can, that motherfucker's hot. I'm not touching it, right? But before you get there, now you know the breadcrumb. So when in the beginning, you're only going to see the boulders, the more obvious issues. You really want to be at bottleneck or breadcrumb is really where you want to be. Now, those are expert level. Breadcrumb is expert. To catch an issue when there's just crumbs is expert level. But when you start to see these breakdowns occurring, or you're like not converting as much, or things aren't going as well, that's when you start to adapt. So like I think one part of Francisco's question was, 50 sellers, they go through the same process. Well, tails start showing up, right? Like the process now splits. And then my recommendation is figure out the common denominators, right? Maybe it's not 50 people going through one process. Maybe it's 10 people going through 5 processes, and then they all kind of go to the same thing. And some of those like at lead mining, for example, I've created products before and removed them. Okay. Like, hey, we're going to offer this as a service. Hey, we're not offering that as a service anymore. Right. And it's because we realize that some of these tails that we spin off on aren't worth our time. And it's not like it doesn't serve a majority. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So when you guys are in your own business and these systems, think of them, is this a breadcrumb, a bottleneck, or a boulder, right? And boulder means you're late, if we're being honest with ourselves, but that's okay, because then we just get better. Well, what did I miss before this? And my team, I say it all the time. What did we miss before this? Because there's like over 1,000 systems that exist in lead mining, my poor employees. But I'm always like, what didn't we adhere to as we start to dive deep into that? But Bill, I thank you, man. Like this is great. This is great for me too. I'm actually going to come back and watch this one myself.
Love it. Francisco, you said a 2-part question. What was the second?
Yeah, what you were saying in your initial response was like a perfect segue. You know how you were describing like, okay, you fix one issue, now you have another issue to solve, and it just keeps going. That was the second part, is like, how do you determine like, okay, every time I fix a problem, it creates another problem, and it just goes back full circle, right? So do you determine at that point, okay, do I need to just scrap the system? At what point do you figure out, do I need to scrap the system or reinvent it? Or is it always going to be that case where it's like you solve a problem, then another one pops up?
Yeah, it's pretty rare that I burn it down. I will from time to time. Like I have like kind of had to burn down things before, which is really hard to do. Like turn on, like, we sell info. So we do have like products and courses and masterminds and stuff. And so I'm in the process right now of shutting down my multifamily mastermind, my entire apartment buying mastermind group, which was $25,000 a year. We have a live event once a year. And I got to the point where my staff was just had to always be on. We were 6-month off and cycle of marketing and me doing events and traveling and stuff. And my staff was just at high alert all the time. We never had downtime where we weren't marketing for like a live event and a bunch of stuff. And my partners were just like, we want to buy more apartments. We don't want to do as much coaching. So I was like, okay, let's come up with a strategy to kind of burn it down. And we had to burn down that whole, we were making like $1 million a year on that business, but we're making way more buying the apartments that we're doing. Right. And it had become a little bit more of a headache to manage all of those people and all that stuff. So I just got to the end of like a 3-month burn down process of doing that. So sometimes that has to happen. The other thing is like to the point of like, it could be a laundromat. I think you said, Nick, and it's like a couple other things like a business is a business. It doesn't matter. Like the real estate just happens to be the widget. You might be in love with real estate now, but it's the widget in the business system. So if you understand that it's a business, you might be wearing all the hats. That's totally fine. But there's marketing and sales, there's operations, and there's finance in every single business. It all looks the same. It doesn't matter what you're selling. Like I just got to you on this video from like a pitch. They were pitching us, me and a group of peers of mine, these other businesses. We had 6 come in this morning and talk about getting a grant from us to grow their business, like Shark Tank, basically. And I was just shredding everybody. They had no marketing plan. They wanted money for marketing. They just didn't have a strategy of how to grow their company. And 2 people came in with very operational strategies with the exact money. This is what it's going to do for my business. They could understand that if they put like this much into this area, it's going to grow their business by Y, put in X, grow it by Y. I was like, that's where I want our money to go. And everybody else agreed. So if you understand business, it's just these 3 buckets. And Francisco, the biggest thing I'll say is if you can anticipate the problem that the thing you're working on is going to create next, you'll be ahead of the game.
Right.
So anticipate the problem that you think this is going to create. That's in the hypothesis phase, right? And then as I start testing it, you anticipated that. And then you can start coming up with some ideas to get ahead of the curve, to not be so reactive all the time and start to anticipate some of that stuff.
And on that, Bill, I'll share one last thing before I shut up for the remainder. And I've sat in a lot of corporate meetings. So Francisco, when you say we came up with one solution that causes more problems, sometimes that will happen. But the only thing that should cause more problems is more scale, right? So if you come up with the solution and it causes more problems, but you're not busier, it was the wrong solution. Right now, if you come up with a solution and it works for a year and then you double in sales and then it breaks again, that's more natural. But what I will share is the common denominator I learned in this corporate environment is when they kept making decisions that made more mistakes. This is where it gets important, because they were choosing the very first proposed solution and running with it. And that is a mistake. It's not the first, we have a problem, first solution, let's do that. No, that's not it. I created a rule in that corporate environment. And I said, let's just think about it for 10 more minutes, guys. Right? I know we're so eager to put this problem behind us, but let's think of the repercussions of also what's coming. So the other thing I would say is if more things break, look at, well, did I just jump on the first solution or did I really think it through? And that's what Bill was saying, which is about in the hypothesis phase. A part of hypothesis is not only hoping our desired outcome, but minimizing our undesired outcome as well. That comes out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, if you take everything that we're talking about, it's always harder to make things simple than it is to make things like really like long. Like I look at these processes that they write out on the white paper and I'm just like, can we cut half of that out? Like, why are we even doing this? It's not moving the needle. It's not producing any extra results. It's harder to make things simple. So if you can just simplify it and just don't overthink it, really important there.
For sure.
Avita Bonita.
Yeah, I guess I should have changed that. And I apologize also for being all unmuted when I got on. But I hopped on, been working with Francisco actually, and I actually am just starting off and my sister and I are going to be working together. So we're really raw. We really are just in the learning process. What type of advice would you give us? Like, what would you have wanted to know starting off?
I wish that I knew that like the number one things was just like, what are you guys doing? Or what's the plan? Like, what's the exit strategy? You're going to flip houses, you're going to wholesale houses, you're going to do land. Like what are you doing?
Empty lots and land.
Empty lots and land. And you're going to just turn around and sell them for a profit to make like active income, like wholesale them?
Right.
Double close or whatever. Okay. So you just want to make some money doing that. So the only thing that I would care about is getting a deal done. That's it. Like, I don't even, like, your process can be so basic in the beginning of a piece of paper and a pencil and just like go knock on doors and put in the work and the time. Like it really, because what that does, I didn't realize the belief change that happened after I got my first deal done. Like when I look back, it took me 4.5 months to get my first wholesale deal. I was flipping some houses that I was buying at the auction with a partner. So like I had some of that going, but the first time I wholesaled a house, I made I made $9,900. I spent a lot more than that on my education and the marketing for it and people and all that stuff. But that right there was a fundamental shift in the way that my belief that this works. Like to do that, and then we did 3 the next month that brought in like $38,000 total. It was like I was off to the races. I just needed to prove the model that it worked and believe it, because I was like, oh yeah, that person, it works for that person, it works for that person, but I can't do it. You know, all that stuff is in the back of your mind. So if I could go back and just like tell myself one thing, it was just like keep going, this works. It's simple, it works, and you can do it too, Bill. It's like those are the 3 things that I would have written all over. It's simple, it works, and you can do it too. It might not be easy all the time, but it really is simple. Like this business is really simple. So it's simple, it works, and you can do it too. Those 3 things. I do this event every year in October called Flip Hacking Live. And a couple of years ago, I just had that was the theme of the event, those 3 things. And people still come back to me and say, I still think about that all the time. So I think that's what I would say to you is like, don't overcomplicate it. You don't need like all this stuff. You just go do a deal, and then let the business grow itself. Like let the money that comes in from the business, let the success of the business grow and organically grow the company responsibly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you know, I think that's powerful, Bill. I had a guy ask me, well, Nick, why aren't you, when are you going to blow up lead mining? When are you going to blow it up? And I was like, I feel like we are blowing up, dude. It's like, when are you going to blow it up more? And my answer to him, which is exactly what you just said, was I think things are currently breaking at a manageable pace, right? Because when you scale, things are going to break, right? And it's tough. I got like 32 employees. I mean, it's wild. I think they're system inundated, and then every day we find out a new system has to be created, right? And when we do these things, like if I can probably make this a $3 million a year company, but are they going to be lifetime customers? Or are they going to be last time customers? Right. And I think that that's the important thing. Don't go out of your way to rush. Make sure you do it right. You create the systems and you build one block at a time. This company, Lead Mining, I've been blessed. It never cost me $1 it didn't make. I never found my personal bank account in the negative from this business. Now, I know that's very rare for people to experience, but that to me is a perfect foundation that helps build confidence, right? So if you do that, like you guys close a deal, then you hire me, then we get you another deal and we build momentum at a steady pace. And then when we have everything that Bill's talking about, the systems and the processes, then we're like, well, Nick, let's pour some gasoline on it. We're ready for things to, nothing's broken 3 months. We're ready for things to break.
Yeah, I think about it as like there's growth phases and there's like plateaus of just like stabilization phases. So I try to take my business through some of those. Like as I'm growing, I'll stabilize. And it's usually for me to like suck money out of the company. The other thing I will say to all of you is a big piece of advice that I did that I see a lot of other people don't do is I paid myself. Like I didn't just like take my real estate business and just keep like buying more and more houses and more flips. And I went from flipping 1 house to doing 2 to doing 4 to doing 8 to doing 16. And I never actually sucked money out of my company. Like a CEO's job is to agitate the business, to create problems, solve them for profit. Like, so for me, I always love it because I just create problems. I like go in and like drop bombs and you know, create a problem inside the company that we all have to solve. And when we do, we make more money. And so a big thing for me is not enough entrepreneurs pay themselves or suck money out of their company. They say, oh, what do they say? I'm reinvesting back in the business. I'm like, no, you just didn't take any money out. Like you never took money out to reinvest. You just left it there. So that's a big problem that I see in these especially real estate business owners. You got to suck money out and then decide to reinvest it in, and just, you know, decide where to put it. You're either going to buy a rental, you're going to buy invest in an apartment as an LP, or put it in the stock market, or reinvest it back in the business. But be very intentional about the money that you suck out and where you put it. It's a totally different topic, but probably relevant for some of you that have been at this business for a while, but not paying yourself or not feeling like it making any money. It probably is making money. You're just not paying yourself, and you have more inventory. You're like a grocery store that keeps like buying more stuff for the shelves. Suck money out and pay yourself. And you can do that by just stabilizing and plateauing instead of growing all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome. Christopher, I know we're about to get here, but I saw your hand was up and then you lowered it. You normally have some good questions, so I just wanted to give you a chance to get it out.
Yeah, it's not specifically like a processes question. I guess it was just more of a pattern I'm kind of running into right now. So like the two counties that I'm focused on marketing into right now, their lots are really rare to come by, and especially in Sumner County. I think you said you were doing a lot of stuff in Nashville. Are you still in Tennessee?
Yep. Yeah, I'm in Williamson County in Tennessee, where I live.
Okay, yeah, cool.
I know where Sumner County is.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of new construction going on over there right now. So a lot of the sellers that I've been running into like know what their lots are worth, and they're not taking any less than market value. And but they seem to be interested in like seller financing. So I guess I was trying to find, is there a way that makes sense that I could offer something that a bank doesn't offer, as far as, okay, hey, if I could come up with a structure where reasonable payments, monthly payments make sense, down payment, interest rate, whatever, and a builder can get in there and put something up and even get, it takes 6 months to put up a new house there, and they can pay off that loan without an early payment penalty.
Yeah.
Whether you put a 2-year, 5-year balloon on it, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're going to end up paying it off early. Does that make sense to?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. I mean, I do this right now. I
Okay.
take private money. I don't do it for lots. I do it for houses. So I buy a house with somebody else's private money. I overfund it. I give them monthly payments. We fix it up. We sell it on owner financing on the back end. So I do like a lease option. So then I take a down payment and their payment is higher. So I make the difference. I make the spread. I make the down payment, all that stuff. So you always want to buy some equity, right? You always want to get some discount if you can, because the builder, if I was a flat spread, it doesn't make sense, right? So maybe they won't take, half of what it's worth, but maybe I'll take like 15% or 20% off. And then I start throwing rocks at the realtors. Like, hey, if you have a realtor, you got to pay for all these, realtor fees and stuff like that. So instead of doing that, why don't you just take a discount on the land, and then, we'll make payments. And then you go to a builder, and I'm sure a builder would love to get a lot for just payments. Yeah, I can get this lot. I'm going to turn around in 6 months. It's only going to cost me X. It won't cost me the full amount. Maybe I would pay $25,000 or $30,000, but now I only got to pay like $250 a month for the next 6 months. So
Right.
Out of my pocket, I don't have to. Now, you would just have to find some builders that would be open to that. I would look for the demand before I created the supply, if that makes sense. So I'd look for the demand from the builders, because they might need to leverage the land for their loan to do the build. So probably a lot of times they're buying the houses or buying the lots and then leveraging that for their construction loan. But in totally, you could do all kinds of stuff. I mean, you could creatively wrap that from an owner finance on the front to the back. You could sell it outright to the builder, and then,
Right.
you
Yeah,
can make the payments. But I mean, it's just, there's lots of stuff you could do. There's a total ton of stuff, but it could. The other thing I would say is I would absolutely create a referral partnership with a realtor. So if you get all of you guys, if you have a lot of retail stuff that comes through on your leads, like, you got to figure out a way to make money on that stuff today. You want to squeeze all the juice you can out of all the leads that you get right now. So figure out how you're going down the right creative thinking strategy.
Yeah.
How can I'm paying for these leads. We're putting a lot of time into them. How can I make money on this?
Okay. Yeah. So one of the objections I'm getting, which is just from one builder, and so one of the objections I'm getting is I'm not offering anything that a bank doesn't offer.
Okay, cool. Like, but you are offering that. Are you checking their credit? Are you underwriting their business? Are you having them fill out 500 documents? Do they have to go to the bank board that could get shut down, or can you say yes in 5 seconds? Like you are offering something that a bank's not. Believe me, I don't like to go through the bank, financial colonoscopy,
Investigation, right?
I don't want to do that. I'd like to just buy it and I'll give you the payments. Fine. So
Okay. Yeah, because my
you
exit
got to figure
strategy.
out all of you, what is your unique value proposition? What do you bring to the table that other people don't? Who is your competition that you're competing against? And if you can figure out how you're better and how you're faster and how you take the stress off, like you got to figure out that pitch. So Christopher, that pitch is very much like, I would be looking for the guys that are tired of dealing with the banks. They hate it, and they're willing to pay a little bit more. They're willing to pay higher rates to not have to go through all that crap. Maybe they got denied on loans in the past. Maybe their credit isn't that good. And I just keep asking, like, don't let one or two people determine the demand for what you're trying to create there. And then you create that supply. Then next thing you know, and you figure it out and you're the only one that's doing it. You could kind of corner the market on some of that stuff potentially. And then you're paying the sellers more. So then you can throw rocks at all these other people that are, giving them 50 cents on the dollar when you're giving them 75 cents on the dollar. You got to figure out like, who's your competition? How are you better? And then how can you like communicate that? That's a whole like marketing conversation for sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I appreciate that.
But
man.
yeah, you're definitely offering something that the bank's not. Like, do you have an application? Do you check their credit? Do you
it's
does it
like
take
the
6
thing
months?
is, yeah. I've never structured a seller financing deal before, which I mean, I have people who can help me do that, but
It's
I mean,
pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. The
And
cool thing is you can create whatever you want.
And to Bill's point, Bill immediately brought up before we get out of here, brought up a great objection, which is if a homeowner ever throws some flack at you that says, well, a national institution can do it. You know what I would do? I would hang up the phone and I would call the national institution if I were you. And I would say, what is required if I wanted to do this? And then all of a sudden, because what Bill just listed are things we didn't think about, right? All of the investigation. Nothing's worse than getting your whole life dug into and you still get denied. That is a bad feeling. And so if someone ever challenges you like that, and this is in any aspect, feel free to, Chase can do that. Well, hey, don't tell them, but you call Chase, then you call them back, but I actually called Chase and they said they need these 15 forms, but you're right. If you fill out those 15 forms and you subject yourself to the time and effort, just so you know, if we do it, you're already approved. so you could do that. So what do you want? Do you want hours of work with rejection or do you want no work with exception?
Right. Yeah. That makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, same thing goes with the seller. It's the same conversation. Seller's like, oh, I could just sell this. I could just keep renting the property out. It's like, okay, like that sounds good. Or a lot of times when a seller comes to me, I'm like, why don't you just rent out this house? It's beautiful. And they're like, oh, I don't rent it because the last tenants trashed it. Why don't you just sell it on the MLS? I hate realtors. I don't want people tramping through the house. Like I'm looking to get rid of all the objections. Like they know what a realtor is. They know that they can rent it out. Like the same thing with these guys. They're like, oh, I could just get it from the bank. Be like, oh, okay, great. So the bank, it sounds like you don't have any problem. You don't have to fill out an application. You don't have to do all that stuff. You got it all wired. You got all the property you need, that kind of stuff. So just try to figure out how you, and then they might just not be the right buyer, just keep moving. Find the people that are tired of the banks. You got to find people that align with your vision of how you can help them.
Right. Yeah, man, that was helpful. I appreciate that.
Yeah, guys, this was Bill. I can't thank you enough. You even stayed over late with us. I appreciate that. I know I've got to run to the next call, but
yeah,
Bill, I really can't thank you enough, guys. 7figureflipping.com. Do you have any other way that they could follow you or get some of these?
Yeah, I mean, I do some stuff on Instagram and YouTube now. It's at Bill Allen REI. Bill Allen REI, like real estate investor. I do like interviews in my airplane from the cockpit and like fun videos and stuff like that, trying to grow social media. And we have a TV show that's coming out here in the next few months. It's going to be called Kids Who Flip. It's a Warner Brothers TV show that we're working on. It's not really like public knowledge, so I tell you that kind of tongue in cheek. But I'd say this fall, I have a bunch of kids in my community, so we're following around 6 kids under 18 who are flipping houses. So if they can do it, you guys definitely can do it. I have a 14-year-old kid that when he was 13 last year, he made $100,000. He just closed a flip yesterday, made 70 grand. So we're gonna be doing that TV show. It'll be all over, like Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix and Apple TV and HBO Max and all that stuff. It'll be there. So
very cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you everyone so much. And Bill, thank you again. And we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. See you guys. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Carla, if you're still here, I'm not sure if you stuck around, but I'll put in his,
I'm still here,
okay.
thanks.
His Instagram handle is, I'm gonna put it in the chat too, at Bill Allen REI on Instagram.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for showing up week after week. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, I love you guys. You're my favorite group of people. Just love it.
Well, thank you, Carla. And let us know if we could ever make it better for you too. You know, I like these guest stars we're bringing in, and we're going to be
I do
seeing
too.
Good.
Yeah, it just all connects. I love it.
And I'm making sure to bring in people that are relevant, right? You're not going to bring whatever we're talking about is who's showing up. I'm not bringing in some crazy shit that like, what is this? Nothing's going to sidetrack us in here, right? Everything's going to
Okay.
be on topic, you know, in a sense too. But no, thank you for the encouragement, and just let me know if you need anything else.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye, everybody.